And then I kept calling out his stat.
Jalen Ramsey was in the head of A.J.
I let the receiver know every play, hey, this is going to be a long game for you. Like, you're trash.
We going to the Super Bowl, and we going to win that.
Jalen Ramsey, who once called Jared Goff average to above average, is now Goff's newest teammate. After asking to be traded earlier in the season, Ramsey got his wish, joining the Rams in exchange for 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick. Domonique Foxworth here with us. Good to have you. Nick, I want to start with you. In the end, Jalen got what he wanted. Right. But do you feel like this is a good thing for the NFL?
I do. I mean, I don't think – I know the owners are unhappy about the level of leverage that some of the star players are applying right now, but I don't think it's been terribly bad for the NBA if you look at that model. It creates interest in the game, and having a star like him in a city like L.A., I think it's huge. They're having a tough time attracting a fan base, and you need to have a personality like that, particularly when your quarterback is – not the guy who or hasn't turned out to be the type of player that we all expected him to be. So I think it's going to be overall good for the NFL, and it's overall good for Jalen Ramsey. And players having more power in general, I think, is a good thing for leagues.
I like it, but I don't love it. What I mean by that is that, you know, we got to be careful. In Jalen's case, this does not apply. I don't blame him one bit. You're in Jacksonville. You know, you're a top 5 pick. You watch 3 of the other 4 guys picked ahead of you get their money. You didn't get yours. But really the reason why he wanted out was because of that relationship with Tom Coughlin, from everything I heard. More so than Doug Marrone. It was really about him and Tom Coughlin. I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to learn more about that, because the part that I don't want to really circulate out there is that you had a young brother who was a malcontent, forced his way out, ended up in this situation and just leaving it at that. In other words, if you had a problem, too many times we find ourselves talking about the player and what the player wanted, and this is why it ended up happening. Well, guess what? I want to hear about what Tom Coughlin said, and I'm not accusing Tom Coughlin of anything because I don't know. But I will remind everybody that Reggie White, the former Minister of Defense, Max, you know him well, and how great he was. Once upon a time, he was in Philadelphia with Norman Brahman, I believe that was his name. The owner looked him in the face and said, I own you. Oh. You understand? And that was what, now this is back in early 1990s or whatever it was. And that was the moment that Reggie White said, oh, no, I'm up out of here. You see what I'm saying? So when that kind of dialogue gets revealed to us, you have a nation of people that's ready to stand up and be like, hell yeah, we don't blame you one bit. That's entirely different than, you know, well, I don't like you. You understand what I'm saying? I just think you too rigid. I want out of here. Because that's not an ideal circumstance that should lead to somebody's exit from one place to a better situation. And that's all I'm saying about the whole Jalen Ramsey situation. I would have liked to know more about what it was about his relationship with Tom Coughlin. When stuff like that happens, I want details, because I don't want it to just be about a player who's perceived as being a malcontent that successfully forced his way out because a different narrative is created from that.
I love it. It makes the league more interesting. I mean, NBA hot stove, like that's almost the best thing about it. And baseball is the same thing. And football has some of that. Good for football. Keep in mind what this is really about. Just imagine you own any business. You know, in business school, they call it widgets, right? Like you produce widgets. What are you interested in? You want to make a profit. You want to make as much money as you can. That's great. That's American. There's nothing wrong with that. So you want to control costs, right? The NFL owners, when they see players, and franchise owners, just like in any business, they see them as a cost. They'd like to keep that cost as low as possible. And what's interesting to me about the public and even the media reaction, oftentimes to this throughout the history of our country, has been, and maybe this is just human nature, if the person who controls the money, the owner does something, that's Mr. So-and-so, we respect it, but the people actually doing the work, if they want to get paid, who do they think they are? They want control over their own destiny? This is just about players taking some control back. And by the way, in baseball, once upon a time, there was a reserve clause, no free agency, right? Then that fell, and because the owners want control. Here, Jalen Ramsey saying, I'm not happy where I am. I'd like to be somewhere else. He used what he could to get somewhere else.
Are you guys afraid of the message it sends? Like, hey, I'm pouting, and now I'm going to get traded to get what I want.
I like the message it sends.
Younger generation.
Yeah. I know. I like it. You take what. So you guys have brought this all in line with Kurt Flood to Reggie White to the birth of free agency. This is just about the evolution of players taking more power, and this is the new iteration of it. And I don't have a problem with it. I understand what you're saying, Molly, is that you want to kind of teach the teamwork and you stick it out and whatever. But people have the employers
just in
have
terms of for the real world.
I understand, but employers have an obligation to the players or to employees also, and we all can relate to that. Everyone who's watching this who has a job, and all of us can relate to that. If our employer does something that we don't appreciate, we want the right to take our talents elsewhere. And these players have extraordinary special talents, and I think that they should be able to flex that muscle because it's not just signing a check is not enough. You also have to treat the guys with respect. And again, to your point, we don't know what happened with Tom Coughlin, but whatever happened in that situation was bad enough for Jalen Ramsey to 1 out.
Think about this real quick. What's the average NFL career now?
I think it's like 3.5.
3.5 years. You get drafted to a place. If you're a high pick, you've worked your whole life to be the best in the world at something. You get to the highest level, and then they tell you you will be forced to play in a place for more time than the average career. You may never even get to free agency if you just have an average length career.
Well, I got a double-pronged response to that. Number one, you know what you're walking into. It's not like you were forced to play in the NFL. You know what you're entering. You know what you're participating in. So let's be careful about that. And number two, and I'm sure you will agree with this, again, we're not talking about Jalen Ramsey here. We're talking about an elite cornerback. We know how big time he was. We know that the situation wasn't ideal for him in Jacksonville. This is not about Jalen Ramsey. Overall, I think you would appreciate this point. Let's be careful in terms of, we want power. We want player empowerment. There's got to be the right people that have that power, too. It can't be the wrong kind of folks. It can't be a bunch of knuckleheads. It can't be cats that don't know how to act, that want to buck the system and don't want to do their due diligence in terms of putting forth the necessary efforts in a variety of avenues to make sure that things march along in a productive fashion.
All right, let's get to a couple other things, guys. Gronk seems to be enjoying his retirement. No surprise, because he said he is not going to be making a comeback when he was asked about it on his weekly appearance on WEEI on Tuesday. Domonique, I'll start with you. He's still working out, apparently. So are you buying that Gronk is actually done?
I'm absolutely buying it. I'm not sure what his motivation would be to come back. And I understand all the interviews that we've heard from him is he talked about how bad it hurt and how upset he was and how uncomfortable he was. He's won multiple Super Bowls. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's made tons of money. I'm not sure what's the motivation for him to come back unless he just
Super Bowl?
I mean, he has plenty unless he just wants the spotlight or unless he loves it so much. But I think all players have this maturation process. And you talk about you know what you're walking into. You don't when you first start playing football. When you're 8, 9 years old and you first commit to this lifestyle, you don't know what you're walking into. And you have this maturation process where you get to a point where you look up and you're like, nah, this ain't for me anymore. And it happens to some people like Vontae Davis. It happened to him with the Buffalo Bills. Remember, he walked away in the middle of the game. It happens to people at odd times. And for Gronkowski, I can't imagine why he would want to come back at this point.
I would say this to you. I hope he doesn't come back. I hope I never see him play football again. And it's not because of watching him on the field or anything like that. When I saw him talking on that stage a few weeks ago, and he almost broke down in tears, talking about what he was going through physically and emotionally because of the physical pain. This is a guy that doesn't need to be back on the football field.
I agree with you guys. I think Gronk, I don't care what the numbers say. I think if I'm making a team, he's my tight end. He's the greatest of all time, in my opinion. He's the guy I'd want. And I'm still waiting for Barry Sanders to announce he's coming back. Like, I still don't believe it. Like, it's good for him. I'm glad he retired. I'm glad they're doing it the right way. But something in me still believes that Barry Sanders is about to announce any second he's coming back.
Barry Sanders was mad about that Lions loss. I looked at his Twitter timeline, I'll tell you that.
He was, but like he was like 30 when he walked away, right? Like, everything you guys are saying is right. I still don't believe Gronk's not coming back.
I knew he wasn't going to get a Super
I don't think
Bowl.
he's coming back this year, but I think it's possible he might come back after this year. But I don't want to see him.
I agree.
He's still young. How about the Nationals? Your city, Domonique.
Yeah.
They got the brooms out last night, completing a clean sweep of the Cards to make their first World Series in franchise history. Ace pitching trumped great hitting. Stephen A., what went through your mind when the Nationals clinched?
Bryce Harper. You leave the Nationals. You sign 13 years, $330 million with the Philadelphia Phillies. You are home watching this former team that you played for head to the World Series for the first time. Meanwhile, you're in Philly. You didn't make the postseason. Your manager is gone. Manny Machado, $300 million. You didn't make the postseason. Your manager's gone. Mike Trout, you signed for $400 plus $430 million. You didn't make the playoffs. Your manager is gone. Big time money given out to big time players, but one player in baseball ain't gonna cut it. And obviously, the Nationals find life considerably better without Bryce Harper than they did with him.
Here's the irony of baseball. I agree with that sentiment. Here's the irony of baseball. The only players really that are worth that premium dollar are the ace starting pitchers. You see it in Houston right now, Verlander and Garrett Cole, right?
Yeah.
Those guys. The problem is their futures are less predictable because of arm injury than a position player. So the huge contracts go to position players who really aren't worth that resource, and yet the guys who can really make a difference are those ace starting pitchers, and you can get them actually cheaper.
Am I the only one who felt sorry for Bryce Harper a little bit? Like, I know everyone said he made, and it seems like everyone is like having a good time on Twitter laughing at him. But like, I know the money is great, and I know it makes things not hurt as bad. But he's a baseball player. He wants to succeed, and I can't imagine he feels good. He's embarrassed by all this, and it kind of made me feel bad. Even though I'm rooting for the Nationals, I became a fan last week when they started winning. I was like, all right, I'll jump on that bandwagon, just like I did with the Cats.
Yeah, totally.
I reserve the right to do that.
Astros-Yankees Game 4, that's postponed until tomorrow now because of weather.
I will tell you this. I'm very, very worried about the New York Yankees right now. They have to win Game 4. Max called me yesterday. Garrett, not Jarrett, but Garrett Cole. He was big time, as I suspected. I still think the Yankees could take the series. I thought that they'd smoke the Nationals until I realized the Nationals rotation. Sanchez, Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin last night.
Guys, Tyson Fury will be here tomorrow. Triple H will be here tomorrow. Greg Olson will be here tomorrow. Domonique, what do you think he's going to say about Cam versus Kyle Allen when we ask him that?
Oh, he's going to say Cam. He's not stupid. Like, Cam is a Hall of Fame, or close to Hall of Fame level player. Kyle Allen is a game manager at best right now.
Really? Even with no interceptions?
Yeah, I mean, you look at his numbers and you watch the games. He's keeping them in the game. That defense is winning those games. They're not getting as much credit as they deserve.
But he ain't making mistakes, though. He's not making mistakes.
Yeah.
He's right.
All right, a lot of fun, guys. Stephen A. Max, Domonique, I'm Molly. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Right.
Have a fabulous
All right,
day,
Matrix.
everybody. This is Matrix.